Welcome to Compression, the quest to $100 million in just 1 year. Join me, your host, Logan Freeman, in this one-of-a-kind interactive podcast experience where I am on a quest to compress 3 years of achievement and production into 12 months. And no, the answer is not to just work harder. I'm bringing you not only ideas and concepts that are complete at the theoretical level, but they're also effective at the applied level. Look, guys, knowledge is not power. It is potential power. Knowledge plus massive strategic action equals power. We're talking about strategy, systems, accountability, all in real time. This is Compression. If I do not quit, I will not lose. If I do not quit, I will not lose. If I do not quit, I will not lose. That's what I've been telling myself this week. Just stick in there, stay in there, show up, and do not quit. Jerome, how you doing today? Man, it's super early in the morning on Saturday. You're back from Montana. How you doing?
Man, 2 hours makes a world of difference. I'm figuring it out, dude. But grateful for you and your flexibility and you're willing to accommodate the change so I could make one of those unforgettable events happen with the kids, man.
Absolutely,
so
man.
You so much.
You're never going to get that time back, so you got to use it the right way. And I know you do. So we are here Saturday early morning. My voice is a little deeper than normal because I'm fighting a little bit of a sinus infection. I was talking to Jerome pre-call about that. And my mantra this week has been, if I do not quit, I will not lose. And guys and gals that are listening to this, every day is not going to be a superhuman day. You know, I just want people to know that you got to keep showing up for the fight. And, Jerome asked, well, how's the health affecting the day to day? Or maybe I asked myself that. And I just said, look, I'm trying to get a little bit more sleep, trying to get hydrated, stay focused on my most important things. But guess what, guys? I haven't picked up a book all week. That feels very weird to me. Now, I've finished a couple books on Audible and I got some other stuff going on, but I haven't physically sat down because I've been taking a little bit more time on the rest, see if I can get healed up and get this sinus infection taken care of. But you just cannot quit. If you do not quit, you cannot lose and you will not lose. And that's been my theme this week. So I think what you're going to hear and the intention for today's podcast is twofold. The first is, just building momentum. So we're at $61.4 million this year, $61.4 million. So we have officially compressed 2 years into a little over 7 months. Right. So the goal is working. Right. I mean, I'm there. I'm tracking well. And we've got a big pipeline that's either under contract or getting ready to close here very, very soon. So I'm very excited about that, man. It's a great metric to be watching. But, the habits that I've been building have been building upon themselves, creating that opportunity to do that. So intentionality is 1, do not quit. You will not lose. And number 2, we're going to dive deep into the focus funnel, something I posted on LinkedIn. Jerome put me up on Game On earlier this week. I listened to the podcast with Lewis Howes and Rory Vaden. And then I started and by the way, his book is free on Audible. Procrastinate on Purpose is free on Audible. So the book that he wrote about this whole methodology, you can go get for free on Audible if you subscribe to Audible. So I'm going to be diving into that here pretty soon as well. But wanted to just kind of start off with some wins and losses, and then we'll dive in deep to the focus funnel and see how we can apply this thing to my business. That sound good?
Sounds amazing.
All right, guys. Well, this week, my 3 things that I was trying to get done is 1 is always living out the gospel, praying with my family. Number 2, really focusing on patience and empathy with Taylor. And it has made the world of difference. And the phone being away has been huge, but also, the patience that I've shown with her has completely transformed our relationship over the last 10 days. I'll tell you this. we were not in a great place. We're never in really a terrible place, but we were not in a great place. And I think there was two things that were kind of really hindering us to being on the same page, right? And one was just patience with each other, So our theme for the week, that we have this board in our kitchen, we write our theme for the week for the family. And the theme this week was trade expectations for appreciation. So, that was crucial. The second piece was I saw that, things that I was doing seemed to feel like I was putting them ahead of my family, and that is not okay. And so here's the kicker. It doesn't matter if I believe if I'm actually doing that or not. It's if they believe that. And really, it's Taylor, right? And so, I spend more time with my wife and family than most men do, but I'm not comparing myself to them. What she wants is true time. She wants true headspace for me to actually be present. And so putting that phone away, she saw that. That was huge. But then also just being patient. I'm a very impatient person. It is something I struggle with on a regular basis, not just professionally, personally. I'm very impatient. And I've gone in spells where I'm really patient and I'm really not patient. And it shows up usually in the middle of stressful environments where I'm not very patient. So I made a quick tweak, and, she asked me about my business, and I tell her, but anything that's going on in my business, I've been able to, through golf, through our intentionality on this podcast, swing out. And so when she asks me, I've already swung out. So I'm not still in. And so usually 2 weeks ago, she would ask me, I was still in. And so all of that stress, all of that, anxiety from the business was coming home with me. And I put a boundary on that. And I talked to Jeremy Goodrich about this, gave you a shout out on the podcast I was on yesterday with Jeremy. Great host, by the way.
He's good, man.
Yeah, he's really good. And so he asked me, he's like, so what's one thing that you can do to be more intentional? And I said something around setting these boundaries with people and with myself and my business. And that has shown up, and it's been a huge win. But that's what I was writing down, what I must get done. And then I have projects. Got the Legacy Apartments. We got our 40,000 square foot office building, and we got another 100 plus units in Lincoln, Nebraska that I'm working on right now. And two of those three are, taken care of. Hostess is closing next week, one way or the other. But we got the equity raised, and we got to get it in. Parkview is kind of my new project. That's the one in Lincoln. And Legacy is one that we're going to have to extend a little bit from a financing side, but all of the equity is in for that project. So those were my three things, living out the gospel, patience and presence with Taylor, and then focusing on those three projects. And I knew going into the week that I wasn't feeling very good. And so I said, okay, I got to pretty much cut out all the rest of the noise. I got 15 things that I'd love to do this week, but what is it that I actually need to get done? And it was all around those three kind of buckets. And when I look at my schedule, look at my time and how I performed this week, everything that I did, most of the things I did were centered around that, which I feel very, very good about. So, I think that the success this week looked like this. This is what I wrote down. Keeping the main thing, less wide, more deep, cut out the noise, simplify. And you guys, I write that to myself almost weekly because it's a reminder that I need on a regular basis because, frankly, and we'll talk a little bit more about where I see the multifamily market right now in my business, because I have some crazy stats to tell you, Jerome, on some things that are happening in the industry right now, especially in Kansas City. If I know they're happening in Kansas City, they're happening, nationwide as well. Things that are just blowing my mind. I'll tell you about that here very shortly. But at the end of the day, I had to cut out the noise, and I had to be really focused this week because I knew my energy levels were going to be a little bit lower. I wasn't making an excuse, but I said, okay, what do I need to get done? What must I get done? Not need, what must I get done? And that's where I spent my time this week. And so, frankly, I've made a lot of progress on that second goal that was patience with Taylor and the family. And it all stems back from being able to swing in and swing out and truly have been swung out whenever I spend time with my family. So huge win there, man. excuse me, sorry.
But I
There might be
think
a,
a lot of people struggle with this, and we'll talk about it more when we get into the focus funnel. But people are scared to set priorities. People want everything to be equally important, and it's not.
right.
And the moment that you're forced to make a decision is the moment that you can actually start making progress on things. I remember when I first got out here and the first thing didn't work. And when I say out here in entrepreneurship, first thing didn't work. And so I tried something else. And then it was pick up the whole bowl of spaghetti and throw it on the wall and see what's going to actually work.
That's right.
And then there was stuff everywhere and it still wasn't working. I was working more. I didn't have any really understanding of how to make something work. I didn't know who I was talking to. And then eventually you start to whittle it down and you start doing less and you start making more, right? And for the people who got a billion things going on, you're never going to make a lot of money. You got to
Right.
find your thing, cut through with that thing, and then out of your overflow, you do other things. But nobody, regardless of who you look at, if they've done it at scale, has done a bunch of things to get to scale. They do one, maybe two things, get to scale, and then they invest in other operators doing other things.
Yep. Absolutely, man. All right, we're gonna get into some wins from the week, man, because I want to talk about a few of these. And I on pre-call, I mentioned one of these, but I can now confidently say that a new team member, two new team members are joining our company. Our marketing director starts on Monday. That is going to be a huge lift off of my shoulders. There's going to be so much delegation that I'm extremely excited about. So one thing I've been thinking really heavily around the delegation on the marketing side is directive, objective, and leadership. Okay. And I'm going to talk about leadership in the learnings, but I've been really focused on trying to figure out how I can have somebody clone me on the marketing side. And I know it's not going to be easy, but it first starts with the messaging, understanding what our message is and really internalizing that message. So when she is out there posting on our behalfs, she understands our verbiage. The second part of that is, what are the tasks that I'm doing in the marketing side that after the message has been created can be delegated? And there is so much around active campaign, social media, offering memorandums, term sheets, one pagers, just closed, under contract graphics, all of these different things, webinars that are going to completely be off of my plate. And I'm stoked about putting systems and processes around, hey, new project is in. We need these three things. Let's have a meeting for an hour, work on it together, and then it is yours. You need to go own this. And I think that our marketing is going to go from a really good spot to a really great spot. And I'm stoked about that. So pretty pumped to have somebody directed 100% of the time on FTW's marketing. It's going to allow us to get out some new campaigns in regards to a podcast probably, and some more videos and different things like that. So really stoked about that. And then our second hire is an incredible addition to our team member, our team. And she's got 33 years of private equity experience. Guys, I'm not even 33 years old. She has been in the business for 33 years. And was a chief operating officer and a chief financial officer for a $20 billion firm. And our 10-year vision at FTW is to be a $1 billion firm. She was a $20 billion firm's chief operating officer. So, and she was there from day one, and went through a successful exit from that business. So it's a whole nother level of financial oversight, of experience that we're bringing on. We got her for a crazy discount, I think, because we were able to paint the vivid vision of our company. And we wouldn't have secured her if we didn't know what our vivid vision was. We've talked about that on the podcast, and we didn't have our EOS or our traction document laid out. It's really what solidified her to coming on board. In her own words, she is looking for her next intellectual adventure, and she sees that in our business. So not only will she bring the experience, she'll bring incredible network to our business and a whole nother level of financial controls that will allow us to not only serve our investors in a better way, but also bring on new partners to be able to scale our business. So I can't tell you how excited I am. She's a CPA as well. So I could just keep on going. She will not be doing our taxes. No private equity firm should be doing their taxes on this level. In my opinion, there's a lot of risk with that. So we won't have her do our taxes, but she'll be able to help get K1s out in a much timelier fashion and really help us scale our business. So huge wins there, guys. I mean, we sat here 4 or 5 months ago and said, who do we need to hire? And we've went out there and got them. And so that's it brings a little anxiety, right? Because that payroll is increasing a lot, but it's the right thing to do. And I'm not sure how many other multifamily operators out there are taking, or just commercial real estate operators are taking the same approach of really building this foundational team that is very expensive, but in my opinion is very needed. So 2 huge wins, 2 team members, accepted positions. One starts next week. The other one starts mid-August because she's the CEO of a nonprofit right now, and she has to wind that down. So super stoked about that, man. It'll be great for us.
That's leverage.
Absolutely. So that was awesome, man. In regards to my weight, I'm actually up a pound. I'm not really worried about that, but what some wins here are is I feel like I'm eating better. Maybe my body's just adjusting to the new foods that I'm putting in. I also was, not feeling very well this week. And so my body might be, sucking onto calories, who knows, but I'm tracking my food. I'm getting decent workouts in, and I'm conscientious about my eating. I'm making better choices. And that's what I'm looking for, is long-term sustainability, more healthy choices. My clothes are fitting much better already. So my weight always shifts before it goes away. And so when I see the shift away from my waistline, maybe up into the guns a little bit more, my shoulders, all of that stuff, my face is starting to thin out just a little bit, which is feeling good. I know I'm on the right track, and I'm also creating sustainable measures to be able to continue to do that on a regular basis. So that was a huge win for me. So, you guys, I started at 285 from the doctor scale down to 277. So I'm still, tracking in the right way. And I got to give a shout out to Dr. Gary, because I went and saw the chiropractor again, and he listens to every episode. So I always love to give Dr. Gary a shout out. The actual shout out this week is, I got some unfortunate news about Ezra. Ezra got sick again. And my daughter, Isabella, did not struggle with this type of stuff, but he has ear infections really bad. And the doctor wants to, put him under and put tubes in his ears. And I know probably a lot of people listening have been through that, or have their own opinions about that. But, frankly, I just have a really hard time feeling like I should put my son under a drug to get something put in his ear. So what we're going to do is we're going to at least attempt to get him into the chiropractor, get his spine kind of all taken care of. He's a big boy. He grew really fast. He's really big boy. He almost weighs as much as Isabella does already, and he's 18 months younger than her. So, he grew really fast. He's trying to walk, and so we're going to get him in, and Dr. Gary has done a really great job with a lot of children in the past that have struggled with ear infections and things like that. So big win for me to have that type of team underneath me and with me on this family journey. To any problem I've got, I've really got somebody to go talk to and help me address those issues. So that was a big win on the health side. The last big win, or I have 2 more. Okay. So the first one, so Taylor's really been struggling. My wife has been really struggling with, do I stay at home? Do I keep working? And I really posed her a challenge to go talk to some women who have been through this. Okay. And so she's talked to 3 or 4 women that have been through this, and finally came to the conclusion that, hey, right now I am going to continue to work. And I know that like, doesn't sound like a big win, but the clarity is the win. She is clear now. There's no question. It's not, hey, I'm teetering from back and forth, back and forth. We were in this no man's land that was causing a lot of pressure in our relationship. And, I had to kind of call Taylor out. I said, you are an incredibly joyful, happy, and fun person to be around. The last 3 weeks, that has not come to fruition. You don't seem happy. You don't have any time for yourself, or you're not making the time for yourself, and you're not joyful. And that was hard for me to tell my best friend, my wife, in my partner in this life, but she needed to hear that. And I said it in a way that was actually received. And she prayed about that. She talked to some other people and came to the conclusion of, right now, I'm going to continue to work, and I'm going to do it because I have a flexible position, and I'm able to work from home some days, to go into the office some days, but I still feel like I can still do what I want to do and get my significance from from being a professional worker and a mom and a wife. So huge win. Just the clarity around that has created so much more confidence in her, and she's happier. She's smiling more. She's back to my fun loving, beautiful wife. And I'm going to be there to support her through that journey. So I'm very excited about that too, man.
Why was that hard to say?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it was hard to say. It was hard to hear, I think. Not necessarily hard to say for me, but I finally just had to say it came out finally. I couldn't get words on what it was. And so I guess the hard thing to say was the right thing to say, right? I just didn't know what those right words were. Not necessarily hard to say. It was just the right words were hard to come by.
Yeah. So you've talked a few times about being curious, right? And observing. And so when we make observations with our partner, right, as long as we come from a place of love instead of a place of frustration and sharing that observation, it gives them opportunity to see their blind spot. So if she's got this anxiety, if she's got this frustration, if she's got this irritation, something small that Bella does can send her over the edge, right? Or
Right.
you could move something and it can create a ton of frustration or turn a mountain into a molehill into a mountain. And so, but they've got to know that you actually care,
Yep.
right? And this is where we mess up, right? It's like, oh, you start pointing the finger and get into an argument because we don't want to say anything when things are calm. And you see that the person is not in peace versus the alternative, which is the best way to have the conversation because it's not emotional.
That's right.
And back to the check-in thing, right? Like, are you okay? Like, what's bothering you? And just asking that question, they may say, oh, nothing, I'm fine. Because, they're just used to powering through it. But forcing them to sit back and actually think about it and say, yeah, I do feel a little irritation. Yeah, I do struggle a little bit with what's happening or what's been happening. Or maybe I feel like I'm letting my kids down, or I'm letting you down, or I'm letting work down, or whatever it is. And I think every mom has a little bit of mommy guilt when
Yep.
they aren't 1000% at home with the kids. So it's
Sure.
it's absolutely natural. And the one thing I always tell folks, especially because for me, I know that the time is short, but also I also know that if you raise your kids right, they're gonna leave.
Yeah.
Right. And you need a whole life after they go.
Right.
And for a lot of us, we just want to be present in this moment because, it's new and it's cool. But just know that, this window is going to be very short. And there's a whole life on the backside of that. And you have to prepare yourself for that, as selfish as that may sound.
Yep. All right. Well, we've already talked about some of the losses. Being sick is never a win, so it went on the loss section. That correlated to energy levels being super low, and that causing lower levels of what I'll call inspiration and feeling like I have to grind. And, frankly, I've embraced it and it's fine, but I'm ready to get my energy levels back up to where they need to be and be sustainable. I realize I'm made some changes with my diet as well, which my energy levels are definitely lower because I'm eating way less food. Almost, guys, I started tracking food and realized I was eating 3,500 to 4,500 calories a day, not even thinking about it. And I need to be closer to that 2,500. And so, taking 1,000 calories away at least every single day, that's it's not an easy thing to do. So that paired with a sinus infection and all the projects that we have going on created some low energy levels. And so I've been focused on breathing more, been focused on mitigating some of the other, things that I was doing previously that we're taking some energy away and just focus on the main thing. And that's been fine. But I felt like, the last 2 weeks, I haven't had enough margin, and the margin being, when I have 2 or 3 projects going on, active deals, which is going to be the rest of my life. Okay. So like the reason I say this is because every month every week I wake up, I'm going to have 2 or 3 projects that we're raising for. Okay. It's not like, we're not to the point, anymore where it's like, okay, 1 month we'll have some projects, 1 month we always have projects now. So like I've had to internalize this new perspective of you're always going to be raising capital. There's always deadlines that are going to be happening. And so, I mean, that's a new kind of task in my business is, yes, I've got everything else of, growing the team and pouring into other people and working on the marketing. But by the way, you're always going to be raising for multiple deals as well now, because that's the business that you have created for yourself. The $100 million goal does not come if you're not raising capital for deals all the time. So it's just like a new perspective, I guess, modality that says, okay, well, that's okay. It's no longer, you got a couple projects now, but you don't have some in a few weeks where you can breathe. It's projects all the time. Got to create that margin for yourself during that period as well. Obviously, bringing on the marketing director, the other executive admin that we're going to be hiring here very soon will help. But I just had to make sure that understood to myself that this is a new normal, right? And we heard that word a lot during COVID, but I've created a new norm for myself. Is like projects are going to be going on all of the time. And guess what? That pressure is a privilege. There are so many folks out there that are looking for projects, would love to be doing projects all of the time. And people ask how we continue to bring, projects all the time to our investors. Well, here's how. The last win from this week was we have over $145 million worth of LOIs out right now. 145 million of LOIs out right now. And that's an enormous number. We probably won't get 25% of those, but we understood at the beginning of this year the velocity of offers that we were going to have to put out to continue to hit our goals on our traction document was going to have to increase tenfold, and it has. So our director of acquisitions has been in St. Louis, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Wichita, Lincoln, and Iowa. So we are all over the place finding projects. That being said, we also have raised the bar, and we said, okay, we got to do bigger projects. And what I've learned is, yes, you can make great money on the 50 unit deal, the 25 unit deal, and that's fine. But if we truly want to be where we want to go, those deals cannot force us to take time off of the larger projects that are out there. And one thing I wanted to mention here was Kansas City is becoming, and I've said this for a while, 12 months, competitive. It is there now. And I have facts around it. We bought 426 units last year for $49,000 a door. That is all in fees, everything, construction, all the stuff. And across the street from that portfolio, a deal just went under contract, which is 200 units. Yes, it's a little bit newer, but it was 200 units, 10-day close, $3 million hard money day one at $117,000 a door across the street from a deal that we paid less than 50 for.
How are they going to make money?
Well, I don't think that's the question. I think it's, I have this money and it's losing money now. I need to lose less money and be tax advantaged. So it's unbelievable what's happening. That's only one example. I have 7 that somebody sent me, all in the submarket that we have about 600 units in. So the win being, we've increased our velocity. We understand our market. We know where we're at. We're not going to overpay and do that. But maybe we should look at selling even more projects right now. So it just kind of shifted some of our thinking in regards to our market. And it's also kind of put an exclamation mark on why we need to continue to get in maybe more up and coming markets like Oklahoma, parts of Oklahoma, Northwest Arkansas, Iowa and Nebraska. So, those places are not where Oklahoma City is, but the other places that we're looking at are not where Kansas City is. And with the streetcar, the airport, the new development that's going on in Kansas City, man, 5 years from now, our city is not going to look like what it does right now. And so I'm happy to what we've done in Kansas City. But if we're going to be a one-trick pony, FTW will not buy anything in Kansas City for a while, not at the scale that I would like to. So we need to start looking at those new markets. So that was another big win, was all the LOIs that are out, the teams that we're putting in place in these new markets is extremely important for us to continue to grow our portfolio and diversify outside of Kansas City. So those are all great things.
I don't know how those guys are going to make money. It's insane. That's absolutely.
I don't know if there's a lot of money to be made on those projects. Now, the deals that we did buy last year are already seeing $150 rent increases in Independence, Missouri, which is wild to me. And we haven't done anything to the units. But that's not in my model, right? Like that was not shown to our investors. We had $40 rent increases over 2 years and we're getting $150 right now. Now we have to implement that on over 600 units. So it will take 2 years, but frankly, I think at the end of the day, we have a great margin of safety on where we're at with those units, and we'll continue to find projects like that. But if there is no margin of safety, I'm not buying it. The tendency of our business was only do projects that we would buy with our 100% of our own money. And we're not seeing that out in the market right now. When somebody comes and buys a $20 million deal cash, puts $3 million up hard day one in a 10-day close for double than what we paid for it, that's not their money. That's somebody else's money that they're managing that they have to place, or they get penalized big time for it. Okay. So anyways, I don't want to get too in the weeds of the commercial real estate world. If anybody wants to ask more questions about my view on the marketplace right now and how we're still finding projects, happy to do that. But that's not what this podcast is for. What I wanted to jump into, Jerome, now, and I'm just going to tease it and I'm going to let you take it away for a few minutes, is the focus funnel. And I have some thoughts really quickly on this and some things that stuck out with me on the podcast with Lewis and Rory. And by the way, I've been following Rory for a long time. I really liked his old mantra of, there is no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs. And I really like that mentality. And I know Rory, has been involved in Southwestern consulting, door-to-door sales. I mean, all of the stuff. So he's a true player, a guy that's been out there and done it, and has some really great content. But he mentioned this: the next level of results always requires the next level of thinking. And he calls this era 3 thinking. And, the Eisenhower matrix, what Dr. Stephen Covey put together for everybody, was great, right? It was great to a point. But when this is the question that we've been asking ourselves, and I get asked a lot: when everything is important and urgent, what the heck do you do? And this is the answer to that. It's called the significance equation. And it's how you multiply your time. We've talked about this in different formats through leverage with Naval, but this really stuck with me, man. You have to give yourself the emotional permission to work on things today that will provide you more time tomorrow. Most people treat time management logically, but it's actually an emotional conversation. It's our feelings. It's the underlying emotional drivers of guilt and anxiety. And you cannot manage time. Time is going to pass no matter what. So stop trying to manage it. It's actually self-management and what you do with that time. And so I'm extremely excited to dive into this actual mental model about this focus funnel. But a couple more things that stuck out to me from the episode, and you have to check this episode out. Just search Lewis Howes and Rory Vaden. I think the episode was called how to get done more in less time or something like that. It's up there. It's out there. You'll find it. But Rory said this too: 80% done right by someone else is always better than 100% right done by me. And leadership is not about getting things done right. It's about getting things done through other people, right? And we've talked a lot about leadership, the 3 levels of delegation: directive, objective, and leadership. And I loved that line about leadership is not getting things done right. It's about getting things done through other people, because as we grow our business, this is more and more important for me to understand, internalize, and really get into the nitty gritty on. So the 3 levels of this, the 3 high levels are eliminate, automate, and delegate. But I am going to give it over to you and talk a little bit about your experience with the focus funnel, the deep work you've been doing on this, and let's figure out how we can maybe apply this to my business and in my calendar on a regular basis, Jerome.
Yeah, man. So it's episode 1133, Lewis House, episode 1133, School of Greatness. So, oh, man, this thing, I love it because we've been talking about not just working harder. We've been talking about figuring out what we can do to be more efficient. That's right. And so the old idea, this whole concept was about efficiency in the beginning, right? There wasn't leverage. There was no way to actually get leverage. And so when I think about time management, I turn it on its head. And in fact, in some places I've called it fake, right? It's not a real thing. What you are doing when you are managing your time is allocating the resource. That's right. That's why I don't let people do to-do lists when they work with me anymore. Right? It's got to go on your calendar. You've got to allocate the time. That way, if somebody's waiting on you, you can say, oh yeah, that's on my calendar for Tuesday. I should have it by 3 p.m. for you, right? Because I've allocated this block of time. Now, if that block of time isn't sufficient to complete the task, then of course you have to go back and reset expectations. Sure. But you can set an expectation when you allocate the resource. Now, eliminate, automate, delegate. And it goes in that order if you want to be efficient, right? Elimination actually forces you to set priorities. And this is where we get stuck. And it started beating on the drum a little bit earlier, right? But everything isn't as important as the other thing. There is something that's going to move the needle in a very large way. That's the 20%. The other 80% is just stuff you're doing to make sure you feel like you're actually accomplishing something. And you can look at it through the way that you spend your money. You can look at it through the way that you spend your time. And I can say spend or earn, right? But you really, really, really have to look deep and say, is this actually going to impact the outcome? Or does it just feel good, right? And be willing to eliminate it. I'm going through it now. It's like, all right, here are the things on my calendar. Is this really adding any real value? Am I really doing anything? I sent something like 250,000 emails in the first 2 quarters or quarter and a half. And I was like, is this actually making a difference?
Right.
Or am I just doing it because I got to have multimodal marketing going on in my business? And I stopped doing the email marketing and income didn't change. So was I doing the right thing? I don't know, but you have to be willing to experiment with things. The other thing I will say is there's rubber balls and glass balls, right? And we're all professional jugglers when we're running a business. Some of the balls can hit the ground, the rubber balls, they don't break. Now, it will be very confusing for you in the beginning to figure out which ones are rubber and which ones are glass. But once you get that type of clarity, this will come back up later when you get to concentrate and procrastinate. So I'll move to the next one and then come back to the rubber ball analogy, right? So about 80% of the stuff you do on a daily basis, and 80/20 Pareto principle is going to keep coming up. About 80% of the stuff you do on a daily basis is a repeat. The new work, the stuff that actually moves you to the next space, is less than 20%, right? And so if you're doing something repeatedly, doesn't it make sense to automate it?
Yeah.
Doesn't it make sense to not feel like it's your first rodeo? Or why does it always have to be like a fire drill, right? And those things are irritating, right? The note that Logan and I are going to talk about afterwards is just standardized communication, right? You laid out a number of things that happen every single time when you close a deal or when you list something or whatever else, right? There's a template for that. The name changes, right? The address changes.
Yep.
The whatever the high level facts are change, but that's automated, right? That should be on repeat because you're looking for the exact same stuff every single time, right? And so just like you have a content calendar, right? You should be very easy for you to come up with all right, here are the things that we want to see. Here's an example of what it should look like. Here you go. And then, you were talking about the 3 different levels of delegation.
Right.
Well, here's what I want you to do. And then, all right, here's what needs to be done. Go ahead and take care of it. What happens, and I've actually seen this happen with the folks that help me with marketing, they go from, hey, can I have the information to put in the template to, hey, I adjusted the template. Do you like this better than the other one? I think this is more appealing. And what do you think about including this? When that type of ownership happens, that's when you're actually getting what I call a multiplier effect, right? It's not just somebody doing the stuff that was already being done so that you don't have to do it, but they're growing it. They're multiplying it to that next level. They're amplifying it, and they're putting their intellectual capital into the business versus just being hands for somebody else who doesn't actually need to do that anymore. And so what are the things that are core operation for the business? How can we automate those so that you don't actually have to think about them anymore? They just happen, right? That's the automation piece. And then the last piece is, the delegation. And so it's really hard to delegate if you don't actually understand the thing that's being done. And if you don't understand the thing that's being done, you're asking somebody to do something without giving them an outcome, right? And there's nothing more frustrating. And I did this. I asked my guy to do some t-shirt designs for me. I want to open up the store and give some people some other alternatives to I took the red pill. I like your pound. Your dream should be real. Why DSB right? Like you hit that hashtag on LinkedIn. I was like, man, that's cool. I'd love to get that on the shirt, but what does that look like? Right. But I didn't tell him that specifically. And so he sent me some stuff back. I'm like, man, what is this crap, man? Maybe I shouldn't do this. Right. And that was failure on my part from a communication standpoint. Like I had some ideas and he asked me, hey, give me some ideas on what you would like to see. And I was like, I wanted to just give him, the leadership level of delegation.
Right.
Hey, this is an idea. I want you to take care of it. And he's just not there yet. He's still learning the way. So, with the delegation, just make sure you're giving the person a clear outcome. Logan called it a vivid vision, right? So that they understand what you're working towards. Give them the gutters, right? It's curb and gutters, and allow them to drive down that road. If you don't give them the end result and the boundaries, you're setting them up for failure. And we do that so often because we want something off of our table. We want something off of our plate. And we say, hey, go take care of this and bring us something back. And we're like, oh, man, I should just do it myself because it'll happen faster. And this was the thing that Rory and Lewis dove pretty deep on that I think is really valuable. It's like, yeah, you should be willing to spend, I think it was 15 times the amount of time it takes you to do it once in order to train the person, right? That's going to do it. Because if this has happened on a repeating basis, you'll be able to recoup that time.
150 times more.
You got to 10x that thing.
Yep.
Holy smoke.
150 times more to spend on it once to never have to do it again.
Yeah. And so, a ton of value there. Ton of value there. And, most people aren't willing to do that. And hopefully, you're a better trainer than that. And hopefully you get it recorded so you don't have
Yeah.
to go back through and teach people how to do it again. You can automate the training piece of it, right? All right. So now we got through eliminate, automate, delegate. Now these are things you actually have to do. And the question is, do I have to do it now or can I do it later?
Right.
Right. And this is where it gets scary. And so the things that you can do later, you put them off and they go back up to the top of the funnel. The things that have to happen now, they're urgent and they're important. Well, that's what you concentrate on. And, the more of that you can do, the better off and more efficient and effective you'll be.
So the way I'm looking at this, great overview of the focus funnel. And you guys can find this. Go check out the book, Procrastinate on Purpose. But this is really helping me understand even more on a regular basis now that we have applied leverage via people in our business, what I should actually be focusing on and when. And so that's the biggest part is when, right? And so he asks, must it be done by you right now? If not, procrastinate on purpose. And 80% of my ideas need to be procrastinated on purpose because, I'm the type of guy who has a lot of ideas that wants to go, act on them right now, but they need to be formulated. They need to be vetted out necessarily before I go do those things. And so my goal for the focus funnel over this quarter is to figure out all of the tasks that I do. And maybe we'll even get really accountable on this. And, once I bring on Allison, our marketing director, I can sit down and I'll have a little bit more margin to look at, okay, what are all of the tasks that I do on a regular basis? What can I eliminate? What can I automate? And what can I delegate? And then where I should be focused. Should I concentrate or procrastinate on purpose for later? And, I think the easiest way for me to do this is just to start tracking all of my tasks via the day, right? And then figure out where these buckets should go. The thing that's interesting is in my business, I've eliminated and automated a lot already. And so this is going to be a hard exercise for me, not hard. It's going to be very productive, but an exercise for me that's going to really challenge me to get into what I'm really doing and see the things that I was really holding on to with bare, white knuckles and things that I should not be holding on to. I think that's what this is going to unlock for me is that brilliance that we've talked about here on the podcast. And, Jerome, I think that what would be interesting is if I could look at my next week, let's just say, and put all of my tasks into an Excel document and, figure out how we can look at all of these tasks in regards to what I've already eliminated, automated, and what I need to delegate, and then either procrastinate on purpose if it still needs to be done by me, or I need to concentrate on. And maybe I'll bring that to the next episode and we could just talk through, all of these tasks and see if they're in the right buckets. And I'll share that with you hopefully beforehand. But how do you see, is that the way that you see this focus funnel actually being put into reality for people, is looking at their calendars, what's on it, and then putting it through this mental model and this funnel?
So I don't want to allow people to be disillusioned here. If you're not at capacity, this doesn't matter.
Right.
Because you don't have to prioritize.
Sure.
You're doing all the stuff, right? And so first you got to get to capacity. So fill the plate up, right? It needs to be spilling over. Once it's spilling over, then you got to figure out what you're going to eat, man. Right? A lot of the folks that I work with are in financial services, right? And like, if your calendar isn't full, there's nothing for you to be efficient about. There's nothing for you to focus on other than getting your calendar full.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't matter if it's the right people or not. You need to have your calendar full so that you can then up market. right? And so for you, yeah, I think you absolutely, because everything's on your calendar, right?
Right.
Your
Yeah.
calendar is actually insane, right? And so how do we, you've got, your 15-minute calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays, right?
Yep.
That's booked out, I don't know, 2 months maybe.
Yeah.
And so how do you, is that the right way to do that? Are you the person to do that? Right. And just kind of go through that. And are you talking to the right people? And if you're not, well, maybe we need to spend some time filtering out how people get on your calendar. Right? I get messages from time to time. It's like, hey, I just grabbed some time on your calendar. Like, I don't know if you actually need to be on my calendar. What are we going to talk about? Or my favorite LinkedIn message of, hey, we just connected. I'd love to hop on a call with you. For what? What
Yeah.
are we going to talk about, right? What's the desired outcome of that? Because I don't have the luxury of throwing away an hour, and throwing away might not be the right word. Everybody
Sure.
has value, right? But is that the way I want to allocate that unreplenishable resource? And when you start thinking about things that way, I think you can get really clear on that. So yeah, grab the stuff off the calendar,
Yeah.
right? You can probably just do a dump of the task. You'll see how the stuff's allocated. The place where things are going to get tricky for you is in your white space, right? So,
Hmm.
6 months ago, Logan, you didn't have any white space,
Right.
right? You got intentional about that, added white space to the calendar. And
Yep.
so it'll be really interesting if you do this for this week and then you pick one from, let's call it October of last year, because I think you were working really aggressively on the 400 unit deal, right?
Yeah.
And so just see if you can capture the difference between those two, just so you can see how far you've come, because that part's important, right?
Yeah.
This is cookie jar, right? Let me see how far I've come, because I mean, you've made some pretty drastic adjustments over the past 3 months. Forget the sex, but just think three, right? And then it's like, okay, so what's the go forward here? What actually makes sense? Where am I actually spending my time? And are they still the profit producing activities and
Hmm.
not the $100 task, right? And this goes back to get the calendar full, get the plate overflowing, not the $100 profit producing activities, but are they the $1,000 or the $10,000 profit
Right.
producing activities, so that you can pay somebody. If it's $100, maybe you can pay them, I don't know, $25 an hour to do that,
Yep.
so that you can reallocate the resource against something that's more profitable.
All right. I got my to-do list. I got my homework. This is going to be really interesting. And it'll be really interesting because I've gone through certain similar exercises in the past, but now I have really a model to pull up and look at everything on my calendar. And then the big challenge for me will be to get my team members to do the same thing, right? And that I want to apply leverage times two to the second power through empowering my team members to think about this as well. And so this will be a really cool exercise. It'll be a lot of iterations of this, but this is a question we get a lot is, Logan, you talk about most valuable priorities and profit producing activities. How do you actually figure out which ones are which? Well, this is it, guys. Here it is. It's the focus funnel. This is what we're going to talk about and go through this exercise on. So I'm pumped. I'll get that done, and we will come prepared in the near future to talk through an example of last year and where I'm at right now and where I need to be. And then maybe we'll pull out some golden nuggets on what those $10,000 tasks are and get really granular, because, this is all complete in the theoretical sense, but we're going to make it effective at the applied level. And that's what's important. So I'm really excited about
The
this.
one thing I'll say, that I don't think this is complete on a theoretical level, because it's myopic. It's only talking about time, right? And how you allocate the time. The piece that is a prerequisite for this course is actually knowing what your gift or your brilliance is,
Yeah,
right?
that's a good
And
point.
so, there's a bunch of tasks when you get into business that show up, that have to be done. And some of them are just going to absolutely be draining for you. You're
Yeah,
not going to enjoy doing them. You're probably not even good at them, but you do them because they have to be done.
that's right.
I got documents for SEC filings or Secretary of State filings on my desk right now. I'm not good at that. I don't
Yeah,
want to do that, but it's got to be done. So
it does.
I do it, right? And so, in addition to this, if you haven't already done the work to figure out what your unique talents and gifts are, you need to do that.
Yep.
so that when you're looking at all the stuff that's done, you can actually do the stuff that's in your genius zone. Because that's what we're trying to get to, right? Where you show up. Like, I don't actually want to do anything except come to coaching calls. Like, if I could skip everything else, because I feel like this is, and people tell me on a regular basis, this is where I'm special, right? This is what I'm actually good at. All this other stuff, I could care less.
Yeah.
I just want to be a practitioner. So just keep that in the back of your head, guys. We give you a model for managing your time, air quotes around that, but make sure that you actually, you are the most valuable resource, then the time, and then the capital. Make sure you understand those things.
And we've talked about the Ikigai before. I actually figured out I've been pronouncing that wrong. I used to call it Ikigai. It's Ikigai, and it's the Japanese Venn diagram, and it means loosely reason for being, and it's simply the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. And that's going to take some serious self-reflection and other people's opinions to actually find what that intersection looks like. You know, it's your intersection of your passion, mission, profession, and vocation. That doesn't just come, you know, in a 30-minute session of you writing this down. You need to get really deep with this, and there's some great articles on how to find it, and then take that to other people and get their feedback as well. And go back and listen to the Brilliance episode where we talk about the brilliance, because we brought out some great gold nuggets on that episode. But the point being, I just want to circle back to this, is, you know, we're talking about efficiency and effectiveness, but if you're not to the point of being really, really busy already, and I say busy, I mean having enough things to do that you have to be even more focused on this, you need to go back and figure out what your Ikigai is. So start there. Once you have that done for 6 months, then you'll start to see your calendar fill up. And when it fills up, then it's time to start focusing on the focus funnel. So great point, Jerome. I appreciate that. Let's end with a quote. You ready, man?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, this is not a rapper. It's not anything. It's from James Clear's newsletter, which I really love. And one of my main investors actually sent this to me. And I love when people send me quotes that I'm already following and have already read, which is really cool. But we talk about creating opportunity out of thin air, manufacturing opportunity out of thin air. And everybody wants to know, you know, where opportunities are. Well, here's your answer. Every opportunity is attached to a person. Opportunities do not float like clouds in the sky. They're attached to people. If you're looking for an opportunity, including one that has a financial payoff, you're really looking for a person. And guys, that is so true. In my business, that just put that out so profound in my mind. And that's from entrepreneur investor Ben Kanusha on how to find opportunities, and they're attached to people. So you're looking for something new, go find more people and elevate your circle of influence. Jerome, thanks for diving into the focus funnel today. We'll come back next week or the week after with some more homework on this and really dive even more deep. But I think this is going to be really beneficial for people. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Compression Podcast, $61.4 million. Tune in next week because we got some more closings happening. I'm super stoked about that as well. Any last words, Jerome?
No, this was perfect, man. I'm excited. You're going to see how far you've come. Hopefully you come back with a smile.
All right, guys, go out there and go get some. Talk soon.
Hey, compressors. If something you heard struck you, made you feel a little bit uncomfortable, good. Head on over to compressionpodcast.com. And then you can also subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast at. If you feel inclined to, please leave us a review. It's obviously helpful. But instead, I'm going to call you out today. I'm going to call you out and make sure that you do your part, sharing this message by sharing it with one person that might need to hear what we talked about today. Be great. Nothing else pays.